What's up, you guys? Chosen here. Listen, this interview was recorded back in September of 2022, and I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking something like, it's April of 2023. What the heck? What happened? Well, I'll tell you what happened. I planned to have this out a few weeks after we recorded, and just one thing after another, and the way that things fell in the order of the season two, it's just taken a minute, and I'm glad it has because now I get to tell you about all of the wonderful things that Sarah has gone on to do since we recorded this. So, since then, Sarah has gone on to launch her iconic young adult fiction novel, The Glass Witch, earlier this year. As if that wasn't impressive enough, she announced two more books dropping within the next year. She launched a mentorship program that's now open, and she has gone on to erect her very own spiritual education brand, publishing imprint and ministry, Svita Lisica. I think I said that right. I don't know. It's Slovenian for Holy Fox. You can catch her on TikTok at srazzy97, putting the rest of us Christian Witch creators to shame. And you can also find all of her information at her website. It's linked below. And you might want to do yourself a favor and join her Patreon because the content is fire. I'm talking magic, food recipes, interviews with deities and angels, things like that. It's really cool. I would go check it out. And yeah, definitely catch her on social media and check out her book and support a self-made Slovenian icon. Enjoy the interview. Let us know what you think. Shoot me a DM. Go follow her on socials. I'll catch you in the next one.
Yep, we're good.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Christian Witch Podcast. I'm your host, Chosen, also known as at Christian Witch HTX over on Instagram and TikTok. You can find me on Twitter at Christian Witch X, and you can find me on Facebook at Christian Witch HTX, or in the private Facebook group for Christian Witches, Christian Witch HTX. I am the associate pastor there. For those of you who don't know, I am a certified professional psychic medium, and yes, you can book with me. You have to do it yourself, but you can do it. The link's all in my bio. Go for it. And yeah, I don't even know. Today, we're interviewing my new friend and someone I just enjoy watching all of their content on TikTok, Sarah, or what is your username? People may see that normally in the handle.
Yeah, it's Srazzy97.
No, okay, awesome. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, she's Slavic American. I think I'm saying that right. She's a Christian witch, and she's also an author, which is super cool. We're going to talk about that stuff. I'm going to let her introduce herself in just a moment, but I do want to invite you guys to go ahead, wherever you're seeing this, whether it's in Spotify, Google, Apple, YouTube, give it a thumbs up, give it a like, drop us a comment, say hello. And yeah, I'm just so excited for this. Thank you so much for doing this again, Sarah.
Absolutely. And again, thank you for having me here.
Awesome. So why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself? Like, you don't have to get like super detailed. If I know some people get caught off guard with that question, but just a little bit who you are and like, what do you do exactly?
Yeah, so my name is Sara Raztresen. And as you said, I'm Slovenian American, I'm a fantasy author, and I'm a Christian witch. And, the first thing that got me started online was like, just trying to talk about writing in my books. But eventually I kept pulling the same few cards in my tarot readings from God, which was all like spiritual teaching and, spiritual movement, wisdom, and share your wisdom. And I was like, I'm not really a teacher though. What qualifications do I have? But apparently quite a few. Mostly just because I kind of like to play spiritual Russian roulette in that I just kind of jump into things and see what happens for the spiritual science. And in that sense, I've done a lot of interesting things. I think I've, gotten more into kitchen witchery, which is really exciting because none of us have time always to do a bunch of big fancy rituals. Sometimes cooking dinner itself is a ritual, and that's all we can do, and that's fine. And beyond that, I also do like to, do interviews with different pagan deities, do all these other kinds of things, just because I understand that, like, it's very silly for me to say my God is real, but no one else's is real. That just doesn't make any sense to me, and it never made sense. And I decided, well, why not actually try and talk to them and see what they're like? And they're very interesting, and I've loved every single interaction I've had and every lesson I've learned. And so, yeah, in the past year alone, my practice has kind of exploded just because I've done a bunch of really weird things trying to explore new things. But overall, I mean, mainly it's just cooking and divination for me.
I love it. Yes, I love watching those videos where you're interviewing different gods. For those of you who don't know, a lot of them are on your Patreon, right? Like there's some
Yeah.
that are on TikTok, but they're on Patreon. Go ahead and tell them where they can find those.
Yeah. So, if you're ever on my TikTok page, there is a link in my bio which can take you to my Patreon. And, so minimum tier, like $5 a month. And all that is really is kind of like a time style version of the interview that's already on TikTok. So on TikTok, I always show all the cards that I pull and, I'll elaborate on really key answers. But the Patreon's where it's kind of written out more like you might see in, you know, a journal or a magazine or a newspaper, which I think is fun just because I like to write. So getting to
Yeah.
a chance to write it out a little bit more fluidly is always a lot of fun.
You posted a public one with Jesus, correct?
Yes, I
And I
did.
was reading that. I woke up and like I was just like I saw it. Like I was just scrolling to TikTok and like you were one of the first videos that popped up that day and I saw it and so I read it and I was like, the way like if you ever spend time with Jesus, you know the energy. You know that there's like a personality. Like sometimes he's cheeky, other times he's just calm and like you just know he has all the answers. And I read that and I was just like, I recognize the energy of who she's speaking to. Like I recognize the authenticity. And I'm not saying like we should ever like call people out and be like, I don't know if you're talking to this deity or that deity, but like it was just for anyone who may be questioning out there who's new to this realm of speaking to deities, or maybe you grew up in a sect of Christianity or forced upon you religion where you didn't think you could speak to Jesus. I encourage you to read that. It really reflects a lot of his heart and his character in that post. And was that on Medium? Where was that?
That one is also on Patreon, but I just made that one public for everybody. So
Oh,
that
okay.
one's also in my link tree in my bio. You might have to scroll a little bit, but yeah, the three public interviews on my link tree are Jesus, his mother Mary, and also Lucifer, which
Oh,
is an interesting blend of energies
yeah.
there. But
I love that. That's so awesome. So I'm dying to know, like, because I haven't gotten to the Lucifer one. Like, what is your view on Lucifer or the Satan or any of that? Like, by all means, don't feel like you have to give a dissertation or anything, but
yeah, no. See, again, this is where one of those parts where a year ago I was like still very scared of the dark and everything that went bump in the night. And here I am this year, like, oh hello, like 16 different infernal beings just in my house. So whoops, how do we get here? But yeah, no. So when I first interviewed Lucifer, I was a little nervous because like it's so difficult to unlearn all of that, like the devil's bad and the devil is gonna get you
yeah,
kind of spooky stuff. But it went really well. He was fantastic. He had such like I mean, you could tell he's his father's child, even as a
mhm,
fallen angel. He's very like stark, and the craziest part is that he still wants humanity to be the best. And so like unlike the angels still in heaven who really try to be kind of like patient, he's very much on the, humanity could be great, but you're all like he really said like worms in the mud and just acting like worms in the mud. You could be better, but look what you do. So that like shocked me because
yeah,
all angels, fallen or not, seem to share this sentiment to a certain degree,
yeah,
which is really weird. But that was just kind of the door opening. Now I end up actually like once a week, I sit down with Lucifer and kind of talk through some things. And you come to realize that there is no like battle between good and evil.
hmm,
Everyone's working for the same goal, just through different angles. Like God will actively put me in that space when I clearly like do not listen to any of the tarot pulls he gives me. He'll tell me, "Hey, you have to do this." And after time of three, he's like, "I'm gonna put you with Lucifer," and maybe he'll tell you.
interesting. Wow,
It's
that's
very
such an
wild.
interesting
Yeah.
view. Wow, okay, that's so cool. I'm just like my mind's swarming with like all these possibilities, and I'm like, we don't have hours here, but wow, that's so interesting. Okay, so do you believe there is like incorrect, harmful energy out there that does like oppose us or come against us at times, or maybe like feeds off of when we're in alignment with that type of energy?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And actually, I was talking to a friend of mine once, and even she was saying that she met someone who worked with Lucifer, and she could see him as this big ball of light because he is the light bringer and all that kind of thing. But there were other spirits, smaller spirits, that were trying to like drag her down and like promise her all these things in exchange for some powers. So I mean, I think it's kind of like people, right? Like spirits, there are different degrees of them. Infernal kings and princes, like Lucifer and Balaam and all of them, they have jobs, they have really serious roles, and they are divine roles, but like there are tiny spirits who will just like find you in an alleyway and like give you the old McShank because just like people, like you got these big high officials who are trying to do their job, and you've got these little guys running around with no rules and nothing to do.
Yeah.
So
That's such a fascinating view on that. I love that. I'm still like working through um a lot of like that whole area. For me, like I grew up like charismatic, like I was very fortunate. I was raised where there was a lot of grace and we believed in like miracles, signs, wonders. Like they taught us how to heal people with the laying on of hands. They taught us how to prophesy and interpret dreams and all that. So I was fortunate because
oh,
that
that
I had,
sounds fun.
yeah, I know, right? Like, and at the same time, it's like as many light years ahead of most churches that they were, it was like they still had all these like strongholds and like ideologies that were just like toxic. But anyways, I digress. Um, but like I saw some like some dark stuff because I was trained. I'm certified in ministry. I was trained on how to do exorcisms and deliverance.
Oh my
And
god.
like I saw some crazy stuff. So I'm like, I don't know exactly what to believe because no one really has the answers. And it's like you just have to use discernment. So like hearing that is like very refreshing and also offers another perspective besides someone just saying, oh, I once saw a demon. That means there's demons everywhere, you know? So,
Right. Yeah. No, I
mm,
agree. I mean, I think the mainstream Christian idea is to call everything that isn't God a demon. And it's kind of
mhm,
like, no, there are specifically demons, and these demons aren't necessarily bad. They can be harsh and they can represent certain things that are pretty scary, but like
mhm,
the real problem is more those little spirits, which I think these are either like manifestations of like ugly energy or
mhm.
just tiny, tiny little low level spirits that are out to kind of like, they're not very powerful themselves. So they're trying to grab some of your power and they're trying to
Yeah,
coax you into doing stupid things. But I think a lot of them just spring from people's own fear and anger and all these other kinds of things. Whereas the actual infernal princes are like the idea.
yeah.
Actually, it was King Pyman. It was the King Pyman interview where someone was saying, like on Reddit, they were like, "Oh yeah, demons would love to just be in a physical body, just to walk in circles. They just really want to possess you." And I'm like, King Pyman, what do you think about that? And he had such like this fury. He was like, "Why would we want to inhabit your bodies filled with blood and pus and nonsense? Like, no." I was like, "Oh geez, all right."
That
Like
is so funny.
they have no interest in like possessing people.
Oh my god, that's crazy. Um, and also, like, when like, I don't know, when you're receiving messages from another source when it comes at you with things like that. It's like, I would not think like that.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's why I was like, these aren't my words that I've thought, but okay. Sometimes actually, and that's the fun part of the interviews. I tell them like, feel free to just take my pen and go. And so sometimes it's almost like stream of conscious, like
Mhm.
writing, and I just get this language that I'm just like, where did this even come from? And the visions, the meditation, like this has been great for improving meditation.
Yeah,
Because usually when I do tarot with God, it's kind of just, and God does not want to be seen. Like canonically in the Bible, and even
mhm.
like when I see him, he'll give me like an effigy that I can visualize him with, but
Yeah,
it's not, he does not want to be seen, like at all. Every time I'm
yeah,
like, let me see you, he's like, we can just talk. And I'm like, okay. But
yeah.
yeah. So the
I
meditations have been great.
yeah, same. I think that the visuals that they give you often line up with like their character of their spirit energy. I know like the father, like I haven't seen like what the father actually looks like, but I've like been in the throne room and like been in his lap and like have seen him face to face. And so, but it's not, I know it's not actually him.
Exactly.
It's like,
Yes.
it's like he's like, this is where I can meet you in this plane for you. And this is like the setting for you. But anyways, yeah, I get what you're saying. That's so cool. That's so freaking cool. I just
Yeah. Okay. So because it's verified, I'm like, okay, because sometimes you do wonder, like, am I really
no, you are
talking to this? And so then it's like,
absolutely.
yeah, you get verified with others. But God is always like he shows up to me as like a man who's like, you think it's orange tan, right? But it's actually not. He's on fire. So he's on fire and he's got these really crystal blue, like so
Oh my
cold blue
God.
eyes. But I know that's not him because he's wearing like stonewashed jeans and a shirt, and because that's just how like I don't know, understand him, I guess, but
Yeah.
him is like something that I cannot comprehend, so I don't really try.
Yeah.
Um, the angels are easier to see, I think, for me. Have you ever seen like any angels and how they come to you?
I've seen, like, my guardian angel, just, like, a quick flash one time, matter of fact, I mean, this may freak some people out, but I actually was laying down in bed and I saw, like, this spirit just, like, appear out of nowhere and, like, take what looked like, and I'm sure this was all symbolic, like, it translating for me to understand, taking, like, what looked like a scythe or, like, a weapon or a staff or something, and, like, try to swing to hit me, and my guardian angel appeared out of nowhere and stuck his staff out and caught it
Oh,
and, like,
wow.
banished it from my room, and I was like, "What the" like, and I wasn't even trying to see this, like, I was not in the mood to be spiritual or anything, so, like, it wasn't like I was making it up or imagining it, it, like, literally I was like, "Oh my what?" I was like,
Oh my god.
"Okay," like, "Thanks," like, and that
Like, imagine you just sitting there, like, with a book in bed, like, "Excuse me."
yeah,
Okay.
literally, it's crazy, and you know what? I've seen, like, I have seen angels a few times. I haven't seen them like their I guess what their image looks like. I more like see an outline. It's usually tall or it's usually light. Um, a lot of what I've seen is why people like confuse them for aliens. I'm not saying aliens do or don't exist, but like a lot of the times, from what I've experienced, is like they do come in like tubular type shapes, like tall, and like there can be light sometimes, and so it's kind of like confusing. But most of the time when I see them, it's like an outline and they let me know that they're there, like for a client or for something else. Typically, nowadays, I work more with guides more directly. Like when I do readings for people, like I'll pull their guides and I'll just be like, what's going on? Like if I'm not getting it or seeing it from like an ancestor or something, or spirit showing me something that involves an ancestor, um, I will pull their guides and I'll be like, okay, what's going on in this area of their life? So like I can see them sometimes like that. My friend Holly actually, she has a channel called Intuitive Therapy by Lux, I think on TikTok and Instagram. And when we first started hanging out, she was like, "What do my guides look like?" And I was like, "I don't know that I can like actually describe them for you because the symbolism's different." But I was like, "This is what I'm seeing," and she's like, "Yes, I knew I wasn't crazy. That's them."
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, oh, dude, that's like the common experience where it's like, am I crazy or am I actually seeing these things? Like
yeah,
I talked to my mom about it and I'm like, yeah, this is what I saw. And she's like, if you told anyone else this, they would think you're insane. I'm like, I know, but the crazy part is other people have seen the exact same thing with the exact same spirits. So it can't really be that far off.
yes, absolutely. I tell my friend all the time, I'm like, if people saw or read our conversations, we would be locked up. Like, so
Literally.
quick, so quick. Oh
God.
my goodness. Yeah, no, I think and that's that brings us to a good point. I think experiential knowledge is much more important than, like, researching and, like, reading all these ancient texts that we don't even know if we have full access to everything, you know? Um,
Exactly, yeah.
having that experience and then using discernment is so important for me, so
Yeah, and like it's not really even like a one or the other. It's definitely they inform each other because like with
mhm,
my experiences with God, like I always wonder, I'm like, am I just like making it up? Am I talking to someone who's pretending to be God? And then it's like I'm at his altar and I'm like, what do you want on this? And he's like, mint, mint. I'm like, want mint? Like I didn't know why. And then I read the, Matthew 23:23 with, mint and cumin and
yeah,
anise. And I was like, okay. All right. Cause I
interesting.
was I was so confused. I was like, of all things that you want, why mint? But now it
Yeah,
makes sense.
that makes so much sense. Have you ever heard that the breath of God smells like apples? Somebody
No.
once said that to me. Okay, so let me just a quick backstory. Sorry for the listeners because I'm just rambling at this point because it's so exciting to have someone else to talk about this stuff with. Um, I kept like I smelled like 2 or 3 times just randomly, when I was, like, heavy in ministry at the time. Like, I smelled apples and I, like, looked, I was like, "Wow, that's, like, really strong," and, like, there's no apples anywhere, there's no, like, little Glade plugins, nothing, and then, like, a few months later, like, some prophet or something was like, "Yeah, did you know, like, somewhere in scripture, like, inspired text that the breath of God smells like apples," and I was like, "If the breath of God was breathing apples down my neck and I didn't recognize it, I feel terrible."
Yeah, oh my god. When you miss the signs, it's like even worse because then you're sitting there scrambling, like, no, wait, come back. So,
I know. But the thing I think is so special that I've learned, at least in my own experience, is that spirit is always just like right there waiting
Mm,
for us. Like we like, and it's not like we really earn it. It's like there's sometimes they ask us to do stuff or like to, do the work or meet them at a certain level, but like they're always just right there. Like it's even if we miss it, it's like they're still there. We turn around and
yeah.
they're like not holding it against you. I love that.
Yeah, no, and for me, honestly, it's kind of like once you like figure out, like once you both connect and find the way that actually like you recognize as them talking to you, it gets way easier. Like I
Yes.
don't know. For me in meditations, I see so much very like I wish I could paint what I see in meditations. I could paint the
Mm,
most vivid images, like they're so clear. But before that, like with God and Michael, it's literally the feeling of someone behind me, like just wrapping me in this really
mm,
warm hug. With Lucifer, it's like my whole like hands up to my fingers kind of light up, almost like I
yeah.
don't know. It's very weird. It's almost like it's not fire, but it's like tingly. So it's
Illuminated.
weird.
Yeah.
So it's everyone has a different feel. I remember the first time I did this at all with Loki. It was like I was getting little pinches all over me, and I was like, "Please, this is really weird."
This is getting weird.
Yeah, so it's like everyone has this very different like feel. And
Yeah.
so I think like I don't know, that's why people is like, "Oh, what's your clear senses?" I'm just like I would say sight, but I don't see things physically. It's always in meditation. For me, it's
Yeah.
more the feeling. It's like physical sensations that have me like, ah, something is here.
Well, it sounds like you're actually operating on a lot of your clairs. Clairvoyance, like for those listening, is that if I say the word, and this is going to be very general, and it's usually not this simple, but well, it is this simple, but I digress. If I say the words like, I don't know, like green elephant, can you imagine what a green elephant looks like? Like that's the place in your head where clairvoyance takes place a lot of the times. Other people see it a lot more vividly, but sometimes it's just like recalling like what a movie was, a movie scene, I mean, or like when you like read or listen to an audiobook and you like see it playing out in your head, that's the
Right.
same place that clairvoyance takes uh, comes in for most of us. So um, anyone listening, by all means, like start paying attention. Like one of the things I teach in my course is like we identify the clairs and then we're like, this is how you do it. We activate. That way you can start identifying like when you're receiving information, because I always tell my clients and my students like 75% of your thoughts are not your own. Like about 25% may be actually yours, but we are wide open channels at all times. So we are always, whether we're feeling it, we're hearing it, we're seeing it, we're usually being manipulated somehow.
Which honestly makes a lot of sense because sometimes I'm trying to hold on to some spirit that or deity that I'm talking to. And like I'm in this very clear space, and all of a sudden there's some random other image of some like, I don't know, person or something. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, whatever is going on over there, I don't have time for that right now.
Yeah.
So, but no, yeah. So I think, and also, you know what else? Speaking of how you describe clairvoyance, it's really funny because one of the things that I think helped me develop that ability to visualize it all was the fantasy writing. Because
Hmm.
I see the scenes in my book like it's a movie playing out in front of me. So I can see it so vividly that, like, I'll close my eyes for meditation. It's all black, but it just bleeds in like watercolor, the most like camera angles. Also, is it normal to see yourself in meditation? Because I always see from like a third person.
Oh, so yeah. Well, sometimes it just depends how it works for you, but like you're seeing yourself on, and it also depends on your view of like magic in the realms. But you can either be seeing yourself from like, long story short, there's 7 layers of reality that we recognize in most cultures, and you're probably just seeing yourself from one of those layers. So some people refer to those as like the lower, middle, upper astral, and then there's like 7 actual ones in between that. So it's kind of like remote viewing. It's like when you step outside and can see yourself. It's just like astral travel. It's just when you're not as conscious of being out of your body. Um,
Okay.
I don't know if that made any sense. I just
No,
rambled.
no, yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense because I'm like sometimes I see the spirit from my eyes, and sometimes I see us both talking to each other, and I'm just like,
Yeah,
what's happening there? I don't know why.
yeah. The fantasy writing is so interesting to me. So I also started a book series a few years ago called, the first book's called Reborn. It's about empaths, and the character survives this like traumatic event. But long story short, like as I was writing it, and by the way, I'm only like 3 or 4 chapters in. I'm not don't let me sound like I'm some amazing writer, but I get what you're saying, because same, like here's the deal, my vocabulary does not have the words to write what I'm seeing. So it's very like, I don't know, like young adult basic vocabulary, but like even just reading growing up, like I love books. I've always loved them. I love listening to books. I could read two or three, if not four books a week if I was like not so busy right now.
Right, yeah,
Um,
same.
and I was noticing like it really helps the clairvoyance in your head.
No, yeah, so that's why it's like, I don't know, subconscious clairvoyance practice is just reading that book and like getting all those images, really fleshing it out, and
Yeah.
then getting pissed when the character ends up with blonde hair when you thought they had black hair the entire time. It's just like, no, retcon. But but yeah, no. So I mean, in that vein, I think like I used to think also that meditation meant you had to like sit in a room for an entire hour and like no thoughts and blah blah blah. So now that I've actually like learned how to meditate, it
Mhm.
is so much fun. I love that. Although the problem is every time I ask Michael to hang out with me, like right before I go to bed meditation, he's just like, good night. Like instantly I'm asleep. I'm just like, this never happens. Why?
Hater. I'm just kidding. I hate that when you're meditating and you like knock out.
Yeah.
And
Which
then
but
also
like
like it's good.
at the
Yeah.
same time, like it really does help because I used to take forever to fall asleep. And now I'm like, well, let me meditate, and I'm gone in like a minute. Like,
Yeah.
bye.
Yeah, one of my favorite authors, Lori Cabot, and when I say favorite author, I mean, I'm not saying she's writing like theses or anything like that, but, or theses, whatever you call it. Anyways, but she's the official witch of Salem, and she has some really good books, but um, she, I don't even know what I was just saying. Oh my God, I lost my train of thought. Oh, I know what I was saying. She always says, don't practice when you're laying down, because if you fall asleep, then every time you go to do it after that, you're out. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I still do it every time I lay down.
At this point, I'm just like using it. I'm just like, cool, great, because I know I'm gonna fall asleep. So I'm like, this is perfect because I have only 4 hours to sleep or something, and I gotta sleep immediately.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So I mean, I don't know. With the Christian witch stuff, I don't know how I ended up on, you know, how they call left hand path and right hand path. I don't
Uh-huh.
know how I ended up using both goddamn hands, but but here we are. So whoops.
Oh, no, I completely get it. And there's probably like people that are listening to this and it's like, oh my God, she's talking to Lucifer. Relax. Okay, I promise you all is well.
He's a
Even if you
sweetheart. Like
even
he
if you
really is.
believed like the big bad rumors, like at the end of the day, you still have all authority over yourself. You can say, leave me alone, you know?
Right. Yeah. They really like, and this even God himself, if you don't want anything to do with God, like he's not gonna smite you or do anything. He will literally just leave.
Back off.
He's
Yeah.
just gone. Like, and this is something that I feel like is very sad. When I see people who like they're like, oh, I never felt God when I was in church, and I'm wondering like, is it maybe because like again, God doesn't really smite, but if that
Yeah.
church was gross and poisoned, he might have just left, and
Yeah.
no one was even able to tell.
Yes. Okay. So that brings me to another good point. And I'm like, I love this conversation. Again, I was very blessed and fortunate that the presence of, and I always refer to when God comes in the room as it being actually like Holy Spirit being present. So if I confuse anybody, I'm still referring to God. But when Spirit was in the room, or God's presence was there, like that's how I got to know Holy Spirit. That's how I got to be so spiritual, and that's what started to like wake me up and show me like, this is not in alignment with the character of the Spirit that I've been so intimate with. Like this is
Right.
what's not lining up for me. And maybe, and like honestly, Holy Spirit led me to where I am right now. And like most people think that
Yep.
you try to reconcile it because you want to be a witch. And like I'm like, no, like let's look at what the word witch means. And it's everything that we say that Christian means. And if I didn't know where the word Christian comes from, I honestly wouldn't like the word. But because it was used to, they almost mocked the early believers when they displayed the same signs and wonders as Jesus. They would be like, oh, like little Christ or a Christian, or oh, you think you're doing something like I wouldn't like it because of what the Western church has done to it. But
Right.
I know what it means, and like unfortunately I'm educated. So anyways, but anyways, my whole point is Spirit led me to where I am. And like you were talking earlier about believing if other gods are real. The Bible tells us this. There's a really good book for people who are interested. It's called The Unseen Realm by Dr. Michael Heiser, and he's not going to go off and tell you that witchcraft is fine, but he has like tons of doctorate degrees and master degrees. Like, I don't know what he does with his time or how he did it, but whatever. He wrote two versions of this book. One is more like a dissertation, and one is like for very simple, like overview. And it's the unseen realm, and the other one's called supernatural. But he basically talks about how anytime you approach scripture, you have to look at it through the lens of the people it was written for, an ancient Israelite, which means you have to go back to the original Hebrew, the original Aramaic, because Jesus didn't speak Hebrew or Greek or Latin. He spoke Aramaic. That wasn't even his name, but anyways, I digress. And you have to like go back and like figure out these words and stuff. And like turns out that that language only had so many words, and each word meant like 15 different things. And so you really have to have somebody who specializes in that language to translate it correctly. But my point is he goes through and he breaks it down how, God even talks about being in the divine council of the other gods and all this other stuff. And it just really starts to wake you up. Another really good book is Understanding the Whole Bible by Dr. Jonathan Walton, for anyone listening and wanting to like understand scripture and understand like why like things that may have been applied in earlier covenants don't apply now. But anyways, my whole point is that if you look, it's been right in front of us the entire time, and people genuinely, it amazes me that you believe what you want to believe.
Right. And actually, and speaking of books, for me it was The God of Old by James L. Kugel, where like, because Psalm 82, I'm like, what the hell do we do with Psalm 82?
Mm-hmm.
Who are these gods he's talking to? And Kugel, who actually he is an Orthodox Jewish man, he's a professor in Israel, so I was like, this guy probably knows what he's talking about, better than like Skippy from I don't know, America somewhere. So thank God.
Mm-hmm.
But he was basically, it's you got to also consider the history, right? Because at one point, the Israelites were a political minority in Babylon. They were
Mm-hmm.
watching the Babylonians parade their gods through the street. They had to deal with the fact that these people had gods that the Israelites did not. And so to recognize that, they basically, someone who wrote the Psalms came up with that story that all the gods were just simply booted out of heaven, but nonetheless, they couldn't deny that they existed. They couldn't deny that they were there because they were watching them. And this is also why they say no graven images, because back then they actually believed that their gods lived in those idols, and they lived like they were actually caught in these clay figures, and God said, absolutely not. I am not a piece of clay or a rock or a tree or whatever the hell you're trying to put me in.
Yeah.
So that's why there was none of those. But yeah, so I mean, they're very much there. And you notice that, like, even if you read it, God doesn't really beef with the other gods unless they're doing something to his people. Otherwise, he could give a shit. Like, God never went and busted up the Shinto gods or the Celtic gods or anyone. It was really only the Egyptians, the Canaanites, the Babylonians, because they were screwing with the Israelites.
Yeah.
He could give a damn about anyone else.
Literally. Thank you for that. And what book was that again? The God of Old by who?
James L. Kugel.
James L. Kugel. Okay. I'm writing that down because I genuinely love books.
It's good. It's only like 200 pages, but it's really just interesting look, because like, and this is why I love scholarship like from Jewish lens, because they're not afraid to admit that, like, or like at least point out that yes, a lot of this is metaphorical. None of this is supposed to be taken literally. Like, because a lot of people get stuck when they're like, oh, but the world's only 6,000 years old. No. This is all metaphor and allegory. This isn't supposed to be like literal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, even then, it's like there's so many other theories that would also like negate that theory, like outside of Jewish. It's like I've heard some that are like, oh, the world used to spin slower. Okay, that's cool. Like that's interesting. I like entertaining that idea, but I don't know if I believe it as truth.
I mean, to me, it's just always just silly, because it's just like people saying that the devil put dinosaur bones here to trick us. It's like, or
oh my God, people say that.
Yeah, like especially the evangelists, they're like, oh yeah, those are put here by the devil. I like literally here's the solution. God made the world through evolution.
Oh,
the end. Done. Like the end. But they're like, no, Adam and Eve, and then I'm like, yo, that's the story. It's a metaphor. You think ancient people understood evolution and carbon dating? No.
Oh my God, that is insane to me. Okay, so I actually like had some questions that I like this conversation has been wonderful. And like we can stay as long as you like, but I don't want to like by all means assume that you're like have nothing to do today. So I do want to touch on like a super basic question, but like what drew you to the craft?
Yeah, no, this is I feel like I don't know if all of us did, but I feel like a lot of people actually had this phase where like you're between the ages of 8 and 12
Hmm.
and you're like I always loved fantasy. I always loved that idea. Loved the idea of superpowers. So all of a sudden here I am trolling around the internet. All of those sparkly like spells of magic websites and
Oh my
forums
God,
pop up.
yes.
And I was like, no way. No way. You're looking at me in my eyeballs, my like 10-year-old eyeballs, and telling me that magic is real. So then off I went. I was like going crazy, but like I found Wicca, and Wicca just like something about it didn't feel right because I was reading about it and I was like, something about this just doesn't like jive. And I was
Hmm.
like, why can't I stay Christian and do all this? Like, if there's all the rocks and like trees and stuff, I mean, God made all that. And
Exactly.
so it just led me down this rat. Like, that's the thing. I always get this very heavy feeling like something's not right. Like, this doesn't make sense. And so I asked God, I'm like, why does this not make sense? And eventually I find all these answers. And now here I am.
Yeah.
So, it's just it's something that I like that magic is real. I like that you can bring that little bit of stuff that I love, the fantasy element, into real life. And
Mhm.
also it's nice. It helps you appreciate the world God made more, because you
Yeah.
find the power in like all these stones and the water and the trees and the sky. So it's like it just makes you more aware of it and gives you
Yeah.
back a little bit of, and this is what it originally was for as I'm reading about these things, back in the day people had such out of control lives that this mysticism was a way of bringing it back in control.
Hmm.
And so it's just a good way to kind of, even if as people say magic is nothing but placebo, even if that were true, it still is powerful to be able to just refocus yourself and push out like this energy to like make some change in something that is seemingly unchangeable.
Hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. I completely agree. I'm like, even if it is just psychological, like, do you know what we're doing? Like, we're doing like 30 years of therapy in 20 minutes here with
Yeah,
this
yeah, exactly. It's just
conversation.
like me with my tarot cards with God, like it's free, it's easy. I don't got to
Yeah,
drive nowhere. I wouldn't have to do that with therapy. I have to drive somewhere and pay people. No.
exactly. I was always drawn to fantasy too. I loved Charmed and Buffy, and I had two older brothers, and they were 9 and 8 years older than me. So they moved out when I was like still a kid and like going through preteen and everything. And so I was alone a lot because either like I was very empathic and I didn't know it at the time, but like I would get sick a lot and like at school, and like when I get home I'd feel okay, but like when I went back I'd be sick again. Like I would have manifestations of like fever and like nausea and stuff. And so um I would be home a lot, and I was always like I don't know if this was like this for you, but like I was more mature than like the kids around me because I guess maybe I was a little bit more in tune with energy. I was more aware. I just didn't know it at the time. So like for me, like the Hallowell sisters were like family. I learned so many life lessons from them. And like I look back and like I'm like, damn, that was just like storytelling and like some of it was cheesy, but I love that having grown up and actually studied magic now, I can look back and say, actually, that fed a part of me that needed to be fed. And it satisfied that longing for the supernatural because, like, I believe we were created to be in relationship with spirit and that we do have a natural hunger for it. And that's what a lot of, I'm not saying that's the only thing that people are like, the hole in their heart they're trying to fill, so to speak. But I like that's one of them that people are searching for, like when they feel, like there's something missing, maybe it's spirit. And I really like I did the like I Googled and I found spellsandmagic.com too, which was terrible. But like at the same time, like I'm thinking about it, I'm like, actually some of those may have worked now. I don't is that website still up? Do you know?
I gotta find it later. All I know is that I remember very specifically being on Spells of Magic, and I had my notebook, and I'm writing down spell to make it rain or change the
I
weather. Is the
knew it!
yeah.
Yes.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, it's crazy. Like it started as me just being a kid and being like, this is fun, and like I've got my little plastic glow in the dark wand and I'm having a great time.
Yeah.
And then like, it kept going. I got into some tiffs with my parents at first because they didn't understand, and my mom thought I was like summoning spirits because like I had an episode of sleep paralysis, and you know what happens when you have sleep paralysis? It's like you start thinking you're seeing things because you can't move, and it's just stupid. My mom thought there was like evil spirits, so she threw out all my stuff, and I was like, "Mom." So that was like the blowout of the century. But
Yeah.
now they're just like, "I don't
Been
care what you do."
Yeah, been there. Now my mom like helps me and everything, and like because I've grown up in like been able to research and be able to explain it to her in terms she understands. So been there, done that. We've just yeah. Anyways,
Yeah, and no, and this is like the thing is like you know, as I'm reading books about like folk magic and medicine and ritual and all this stuff, like with my own people, like Italian folk magic, you realize like the only reason I call myself a witch is again because of that fantasy element, because I
yeah,
love the fantasy thing. But if I had to call myself something else, it'd probably be folk healer, because the stuff
yeah.
that we do is the stuff our ancestors did in a Christian context.
Yes,
Like,
exactly. It was healing. It was the wise people of the village and the tribe and the town and the counselors and the doctors. Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. 100%. I tell people all the time, I don't even really love, well, I like it, but like I have cognitive dissonance with the word witch because I was trained for a while to believe that it was evil. And like it, in the world I was in, it was like Christians versus witches. Like it was like we had the authentic thing, and like the only difference was who was the Lord of your life. And I was like, actually, that is the difference. It's like, are you in alignment with fear or love? And not saying that
exactly.
fear isn't powerful and that it's evil if you are in alignment with it, but I'm like, to them in that worldview, I'm like, you literally just made my argument for me. It's the same thing. It's your attention, the energy behind it, and everything. So, um,
Yeah, no, God, I hate when people throw out that you can't have two masters line, because I'm like, first of all, that was about money, so go
yeah,
check your bank account. But second of all, like, where's the second master? Like, where
yeah,
is it? The
yeah.
Rock? No.
Exactly. Yeah. So dumb. So dumb. So yeah. Anyways, do you find that like looking back, like when you do visualizations, like I don't know what your spell work looks like, but I know for me, like visualizing the magic and everything sometimes looks like recalling special effects from Charmed and Buffy. Sometimes recalls like scenes from books that I've read.
No, like how do I don't know. They're like I know that like nothing comes in a vacuum. So like when I imagine stuff, you know,
Mhm.
certain like when I imagine I'm the most half-assed witch that ever half-assed, to be honest. Like I'm not gonna lie. People are like
Crazy. Crazy.
people are like, oh, you gotta cast all these protections, and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do the
That's when the
Lord's
kino
Prayer.
goes off. Like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah, I'm just like Lord's Prayer, and like this is actually I think this is one of the ways that I've been able to be successful with encountering other spirits, is that like, you know, I ask God, can I talk to these other deities and learn from them or learn about them? And he's like, sure. Which
Yeah.
sometimes you gotta be careful when God says yes, because sometimes it's him being like, yeah, go ahead, walk into
Go
that
for
ditch. Yeah,
it.
and you're just like, ooh. But no, so yeah, every time I just do the Lord's Prayer and I ask him like, you know, please let through like the true spirit, no egregores, no tricksters, no nothing, and I get very vividly discerned spirit. So that
Mhm.
to me, I don't need to do any crazy fancy protections, because Michael's always there,
Yeah.
ready to like throw down. I've noticed now that he's always there, or God. Like they're intrusive. When I was talking to Thor, we are in this Norse mess hall, and I look behind, and there's these stained glass windows like a Catholic church. And I'm like, Thor, I never pictured you for a stained glass kind of guy. And he's like, that's your God looking over our shoulder. Don't look at me. I was like, oh, what? So
Interesting.
he's always just like a parent in the back, like watching from like three bleachers away.
I
I don't
love
know.
it. It's hilarious when you describe it like that.
It's so funny, but no. So my magic to me looks like kind of like golden light when it's coming directly from me. But then
Mhm.
if you've ever played like Skyrim, when it comes to wards, it's literally
Mhm.
like that ward spell where it's just like a big like energy shield in front of you.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
so I made one ward once that's like a little oil jar, just to like, I don't know, if people are being stupid and they're trying to throw things at me, it'll just catch it, transmute it. There's like one very, very, very spicy pepper in there as just like a don't.
Yeah.
But but otherwise, like, I don't know. If people hex me, if they don't, to me it's just like I
Yeah.
don't know. Like I've never felt the need to actively protect or shield it, because like I
Yeah.
feel like my angels are always there trying to like murder something anyway.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. I get it. So what, and you don't, again, by all means, like feel free to, say like as little or much as you want about this, but what is it like being in such a niche space online and also like being in front of so many people, because you do have a significant following, even if it was just like 2,000 people, that's significant. There's 2,000 eyes on you, but you have like 30 something. So um, what's it like? Because I see that like some accounts don't get engagement, but they have lots of followers, and you actually have people, they're commenting, they're liking. Like, do you have the crazies? Are they filtered out? What's going on?
Oh geez. Well, there's like a lot of angles to this,
Again, as
honestly.
little or much as you like.
Oh, well, like, right. So being a Christian witch, I describe it as being on a bridge between two enemy countries because, like,
That
they're
is so
continuously goddamn fighting with each other, and you're
Mhm.
caught in between them. Like, I'm honestly, to me, it's like in the true nature of Jesus.
Yeah,
These hands are rated E for everyone. I've got hands for everyone on both sides of this because I see everyone acting like a mess all the time, whether it's
yeah,
Christian, pagan, whatever. I see everyone acting like just ridiculous. And you look at both of them and you're like, it doesn't need to be this way. I mean, just this morning I woke up and I got some like dude whose name is like We the Crusaders. He's got like an axe verse in his bio. He's like, witches get what they want through the devil and stones. And I'm just sitting there like, straight out of 1480, my dude. Like, thanks for
yeah.
that, Jesus. And then, like, but then the weirdest part is you get pagans who then come on and you're like, you can't be a Christian and a witch. And it's like,
Thank
my
you.
dude.
Like, of
like,
all people.
like it's so weird because like you see like all these, and like I hold my tongue when I see people make videos about like God being genocidal or bad or evil or whatever, because I'm like, I get where you're coming from. I know who hurt you, so I'm not gonna run up your ass and be like, actually, like, I get it. But also it's like, then the Zenithras thing happened, right? I'm sure you saw the debacle that was that joke account that was saying they're gonna hex Zeus and bind him to Tartarus and all this. Like, obviously a joke, but then all these pagans were like, "That's so disrespectful. That's so bad." And I'm just sitting here in the back, like, sure is.
Sure is.
Imagine if you applied that logic to every divinity. But don't worry.
No kidding.
So yeah, I don't know. It's a little hard not to be bitter because it's like, yeah, try to be understanding of where they're coming from, but also I'm just like, y'all realize I'm on your side, right? Like, I'm
Yeah.
on your side. I'm not on the side of the church. The church is a mess.
Yeah, the church is a hot mess, and I'm not saying there's not, like, some nice, authentic people within it, but
But like
as a
as an
whole,
institution, yeah, like it's not good. And I feel like, the whole tools of spirituality have been taken away so that people rely on man and institution instead of God. And
yeah,
so that's why it's so like it's bothersome. Like, you get these Catholics who pop into my page like, well, the catechism says spiritism is a sin. I'm like, how do you even define spiritism,
yeah,
first of all? And then they tell you it's like, oh, it's trying to, like, I read the catechism, like, trying to get power that isn't yours, it's disrespectful to God. I'm like, God gave us muscles to move in the physical world. And he gave us magic to move in the spiritual world.
yeah.
What, like, are you gonna yell at people for going to the gym too?
Yeah,
Like,
but also, like, in just, like, basic defense, like, Jesus literally gave us all power, authority, and dominion, like, he handed it over to us. We are co-creators with God, like, we literally have the access to speak into existence things.
yeah,
So,
and like
you
even
don't need
before
power, we
Jesus,
got it.
yeah, even before Jesus, God already gave us dominion over the earth. So like when I'm doing my spells,
Exactly.
it's like, in the name of God, I call on the amethyst, this and that, to help me out. And so
Yeah,
they're just little buddies. That's what I think. Like, everything has a
yeah.
talent.
Tools,
But
it's just like saying, like, you're not gonna take vitamins or minerals to nurture your body, like, they're just tools, they're little tiny little pieces of rocks, and
yeah.
well, I don't know if they're actually rocks, but you know what I'm saying. They're little materials of the earth.
No, but yeah, and so it's just like the both sides just get very silly. But then, like, and then the audience wise,
Yeah,
when I posted the Jesus interview, I like, again, it's like, I originally thought like, oh, this is gonna be a fun, nice thing. But when I opened it up, I said, hey, like, what questions do you all have for Jesus? It's like, I already know him decently well. And like, it's very clear that like people are hurt, and so it's this audience that I have. It's not just like an audience that sits there and receives and does nothing. They're real people
yeah,
who like end up looking to me for like some kind of comfort. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that for you. All I
yeah,
can do is take this seriously, and bring these questions to Jesus. And that's why, like, God, that interview took so long because
I
I
bet.
had
Yeah, I
so
was
many
reading
questions. Yeah. But
it.
yeah, there's like a responsibility now that comes with, like, because they're almost like putting their faith or like their fears in you. They're saying like,
Yeah,
hey, like, I'm so worried, but do you have any answers? And I'm just like, all I know is what I know, and I
yeah,
don't know what I don't. So
yeah, I mean, I'm reminded of, was it Peter or Paul? I always forget, I'm confused, but when they were walking in and the beggar was asking for money, he was like, I don't have that, but I'll give you what I do have. And he like released healing over him and he like got up and walked.
Mm,
Like I take that and I'm like, I don't have all the answers, but what I do have sometimes is peace. What I do have sometimes is trust and spirit. For me, like this whole journey, especially when it came to like deconstructing the lies I believed about LGBTQ and all that stuff, um, I had to trust that God, Holy Spirit, Jesus, whoever you're closest to from the three, or your angels, whatever, I had to trust that Team God was way more able to keep me and protect me than any like incorrect or harmful energies ability to deceive me into believing a lie. Like I had to trust in the goodness of God more than I trusted in the deceitfulness of the dark, quote unquote.
right. No, and that's the thing. And this is actually this is what's interesting to me is that it was King Pyman who told me, like, the root of all evil. I expected him to say power. I expected him to say something like he said. It's fear. It's that people, for all that they know, they get afraid of what they don't understand, and they flip out, start making
Mhm.
really stupid choices. All the knowledge in the world won't help you if you can't use it rationally. So it's like this, people who are so focused on this idea of, oh, the devil's going to get you. They're always so fear, and that's how you know that a church has nothing to do with God if they're preaching fear instead of
Exactly.
love.
Exactly. Wow, you could not have summed that up any better. I completely just wholeheartedly back that statement. It's all about fear versus love. So real quick before we wrap up, so we have like a couple of minutes here. Do you have any favorite metaphysical type books or any favorite fiction type books? You can't say your own, but
Yeah, actually, no, you know what? I was thinking about it because I made a video about it because it's really interesting. The Bear and the Nightingale, the series, it's called the Winter Night Trilogy by Catherine Arden. But there's a point in the books where, right, like a lot of times we see fantasy and set in the real world that like God is there, but like not present, and that always bothers me that like God is always mentioned, but he's never there. Like in Supernatural and all these other things, God is just never there. And it's like y'all are working within the framework of it, but you never bring him in. I wonder
mm,
if it's because people are afraid of trying to put words in God's mouth or something, but
yeah.
I digress. But there was a moment in the third book, might have been the third book, where it's basically old Russian spirits, these old folklore spirits, these old gods that are the main characters, and they're fighting. And there's like this army of undead that one of them's bringing in. I mean, I hate to spoil, but then like a priest comes in, and like at first the main character with her witchcraft is just like shooting one at a time, like fireballs and stuff. But there's nothing to do. But the priest comes in, and he just like in the name of God, he drops them all at once because his faith was so powerful and his belief in his, and that's like how magic works in that book. Like
Yeah.
you have to believe, like you basically, at least she keeps saying, I forgot that this enemy was not on fire, and then it burst into flames. So it's
Mm,
literally like how you perceive reality. And so that priest had such faith and such like absolute conviction that
yeah.
he was able to just shift reality like that. And
Yes.
that's magic to me. That's holy magic.
Absolutely.
So like it's fiction, but it's still a very accurate representation to me of how magic works.
I
um
love that.
it was really cool. I was like pour one out for God. It's the priest who comes in here and like wastes them all in one prayer. Like, don't even talk to me. But but then like metaphysical wise, actually, magic in Christianity from Jesus to the Gnostics, that one is like my go-to when people say like, how can you say magic is a thing? And he goes over like, this, that, and the other. These are all mistranslations. They're talking about specific magic, this, that, and the other thing. And even he says like the Roman polytheists at the time, they thought Jesus was just some like Houdini ass charlatan who was doing like parlor tricks. They were like, you, and like literally one guy, Lucius, I believe, was a Roman philosopher, and he was like, at the time Christians were mostly women and enslaved people, and he's like, these people are so stupid, they believe without having a reason to, they're just simple, this religion is for stupid simple people. And it's just like that was how people thought of Jesus and Christians. And this is where that push to not make it magic but miracle really came from the apostles. They're like, no, it's not just magic, it's actual miracles. And so it's like they're the same thing actually, but
Yeah.
so that's another really good book, metaphysical wise. But
That's awesome. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I actually I've seen that book multiple times. I think I've actually seen you. Have you ever like held it up in a video before?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, yeah, because I've seen it. There, it's at okay. I always eye it down at my local metaphysical shop, but I'm like, oh, there's so many other books I have to get through. So I haven't picked it up, but I know exactly which one you're talking about. That's awesome. So I guess to kind of wrap things up, because I don't want to hold you forever. Um, is there anything that you like wished someone knew about you or about like what you represent or your community that maybe they wouldn't know how to ask when they're like getting to know you, whether it's in person or online? Like maybe they don't know to think of this. I know that's like such a
I mean, I'm just trying to think of how I would say it. I think the main thing is that like people might look at my page and think that like, oh, she's a Christian, so she's really pious and I'm the most like trash raccoon individual. Like, and here's the thing: God really will meet you where you are. Like, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to anything to
Mhm.
be in contact. Like, I don't know. There's all this, excuse my language, bullshit about like
Mhm.
vibrations and like you got to be high vibration. No, literally, like the amount of times I have rolled up to God, just like literally, just like in my mind, screaming, crying, like punching the
Yeah,
air because I'm just like, I'm gonna fucking, oh, sorry again, just lose my
oh,
mind
you're
out here.
fine. I actually cuss a little, so
Okay. I think that's, yeah, no, but
I'm
but
kidding.
like I don't know.
I do like to cuss. So by all means, hi, I'm your associate pastor and Christian with JP. I do cuss.
So, and and this is the thing, like I'm not perfect, and I think this idea that like Christians have to dress a certain. This is literally what Jesus said not to do, was try to
Yeah,
look a certain way, be a certain way. No. You have to just in your heart be the best you can be. And so
yeah,
when people look at me, like, don't think that I'm just like some little cinnabon, super pious. But no, I am like the rest of us, struggling, freaking out, losing my mind. But like God's still there. He
yeah,
doesn't just leave because you're not in tip top shape. He will never leave you because you're not in tip top shape.
yeah. Wow, that was such a good thing to like wrap this conversation up with. Like I could not have I don't know, I couldn't have imagined that going any better.
Yeah,
So
I
I'm
mean,
so thankful just to have shared this time with you, and I I I can just imagine like the messages that are going to come in after hearing this. But where can people find you? What do you offer? Any services? Is there anything you like to let them know? Like, hey, I created this. This is where you can find it. When does your book come out? Do all of that stuff. I know self promotion isn't like our favorite thing to do, but go for it. Be that self promotion right now.
yeah, no, I mean the main place I'm most active is on TikTok on Strazzy97, and in the link in that bio is like the link tree has a billion things. First one that pops up is my book, comes out January 30th, 2023.
So excited.
It's, oh my god, I'm already like getting a few reviews from like ARC readers, and like, oh, I'm so excited. Like, I don't know, this is my debut basically. I've been like gunning for this since I was a child. So the fact that like it's actually here and it's real is
Yeah.
yeah, but so you can like pre-order it on Barnes Noble as either paperback or an ebook. Right now it's only available on ebook on Amazon. You can also get it from my website, which I have a link to as well in there. It's like same price, but I'll sign it for you. You get it from my website.
Oh my God,
So
get it from our website.
but yeah, so there's that. And otherwise there's like a Patreon where I do teach. It's kind of a weird jumble of stuff, but I have one section that's more like for all witches with kitchen stuff. I have a side specifically for Christian stuff, and then I have a side for writers. Or the higher up the tiers, the more they combine all of them. So the highest
Mhm.
tier like gets writing, kitchen, and Christian stuff like all at once. And otherwise, I mean, yeah, just if you want to hang out with me on TikTok, that's really my favorite. I love the community I've built there. I love, getting to see everyone. Like, there's you, there's Lena, there's just so many
Yeah,
of us that like, I don't know. It's a great time. So that's
it
really
is.
it. That's all I
It
got.
is. Well, thank you for sharing all that. I will say you, by all means, are way more creative than I, but we appreciate that. We digress. We show up sometimes. Catch me in the lives. That's where it's really at, you guys.
Yeah, I can't do lives to save my life. So
You can? Why not?
I literally every time I'm on live, I'm like, hello. This is
You
me
gotta give it a
being
few minutes.
awkward and weird.
I was on for like 3 hours the other night. I didn't mean to be, but anyways, that's a different story for another time. Well, thank you so much. So I obviously don't know how to pronounce your name properly. I've been calling you Sarah, but I know like it has influence from your heritage. So let everyone know your full name in your accent before we sign off. And again, just thank you so, 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 so much.
Absolutely, yeah, no, and again, thank you for having me. My name is Sara Raztresen, and yeah, I will catch you guys around. Very excited to see how all this comes out. We listen to this episode later.
Yes, go follow, go follow. And yeah, anyways, I'm going to end the recording now.